All right, thank you. Let's share my screen and get on with the show. And in the meantime, I think I'm going to have, I need a few more people to help me moderate. So, Shafay, I'm going to make you a co-host so that you could bring people in. And Amory is going to be joining us a little bit late, or Dr. Kenny, if one of those joining, will make them co-host. Uh, oh, no, that. Okay. Thank you guys very much for sharing your evening with us today. And my name is Dr. Dieter. I'm a board certified internist and a pediatrician who has taken a loving for what we call metabolic health. And I want to start by asking us this question. Why are we so sick today? And the answer is simpler than you think. We are sick because we eat in ways that harm our body's natural biology. Food is supposed to be medicine, or it can be poison. And unfortunately, for many of us, the latter is true. Food is poison. We eat in ways that have affected two key systems in our body. And what are those two key systems? Those two key systems are how the body makes energy and how the body functions. And now there is now reputable science that shows that those two entities are the reason why we are so sick today in modern society. So what I would like to do in this is in this presentation, I would like to take you through, how modern day diseases are connected to how the body makes energy and how the gut functions. So let's get with it, and let's start with the very first entity, how our body makes energy. How our body makes energy is dependent on a hormone called insulin. Insulin. It's a key driver in how the body makes energy, hormone produced by the pancreas. Now, how does insulin do that? Insulin does that by this. When we eat, all the food that we eat is converted after absorption occurs. That food is converted into glucose and released into the blood. The job of insulin is to mobilize that glucose out of the blood into the cell. In the cell, there is a special organelle when glucose is going to mobilize that glucose out of the blood into the cell. In the cell, there is a special organelle in the cell called the mitochondria. You may remember from your junior biology classes as the mitochondria being nicknamed as the powerhouse of the cell. In the mitochondria, what happens is that the glucose goes through a complex series of reactions called the electron transport chain with the result of an energy molecule called ATP, which stands for adenosine triphosphate. That is just simply an energy molecule. Now, that is how insulin secures the body's energy needs. And you have to understand every cell in the body requires energy to function. Every cell, the smallest entity of the body is a cell. Cell group up to form tissues, tissues group up to form organs, and organs group up to form system, and system forms the whole man. And every single cell in the body requires energy to function. Now, when the cell has the energy that it needs to function, the cell functions well. When a cell does not have the energy that it needs to function, it malfunctions. And the simplest definition of a disease is a group of cells, tissues, organs, or system that has malfunctioned because of the lack of energy. Now, um, when insulin is able to secure the body's energy needs, things work smoothly. Insulin is the most important hormone in the body. It's like the CEO of the body, is hormone numero uno. It is that important. Now, when insulin is unable to secure the body's energy needs, there is a breakdown in the process of insulin being able to secure the body's energy needs. We call that breakdown insulin resistance. That breakdown we call insulin resistance. Now, how does the breakdown come about? Once upon a time, when we were created by our maker in such a way that our insulin was working perfectly. But we now living in modern society are having this issue of insulin resistance, a breakdown in insulin securing the body's energy needs. You see, this is what happens. This is how the breakdown occurs. Every time you eat, you're gonna insulin has to go to work. Every time you eat, this process has to occur. The statistics now say that in modern day society, we are eating more than our ancestors ate hundreds of years ago. In fact, the statistics say that we are consuming about 30 to 35% more calories today, than our ancestors did 500 to 1,000 years ago. So every time you consume a calorie, you call insulin into action. I'll pick on you, Gilmore. Gilmore, if you have a job and your employer told you at this job you're going to work overtime once a year, that's no big deal. That's like a drop of water in the ocean. It's not going to really affect you. But if your employer came to you and said, Gilmore, button up or buckle up on this job, expect to work overtime 35% of the time every day. What's going to happen to you is that you're going to get burned out because you're now working 35% overtime. And that is exactly what is happening to us today in modern society, consuming 35 to 40, 30 to 35% more calories than we did. When we do so, we are putting insulin to work over and over and over again. And insulin now becomes burned out. You see, they say in a single can of a soda, there is more sugar in a single can of a soda when we consume it than our ancestors would have consumed their whole life. That just gives you the perspective of how much calories we are consuming today, different from our ancestors that has caused insulin to get burned out. So insulin processes 30 to 35% more calories, has worked 30 to 35% over time and gotten burned out. Gilmore, as an employee, if you get burnt out, you become an ineffective employee. You're not able to do your job well again. So when insulin becomes burnt out, insulin is not able to procure or secure the body's energy needs. And we call that insulin resistance. And when you now have insulin resistance, you now develop diseases like diabetes, cancer, PCOS, high blood pressure. These diseases are all stemming from the fact that insulin can no longer secure the body's energy needs. And remember, I described a disease as the simplest definition of a disease, or as a group of cells, tissues, organs, or system that has malfunctioned because of the lack of energy. So when insulin is not able to secure the body's energy needs, and all the systems require energy to function, they malfunction, and you start having these disease processes. So that is the very first entity, how this feeds into the reason why we're sick. Let's examine entity number two, how the gut function. Our gut is very, very critical in our health. And the function of the gut is dependent on the bacterial population in the gut. You see, in our gut, there are about 30 to 100 trillion bacteria that live in our gut. And this 30 to 100 trillion bacteria have a special name called the microbiome. They live in a 50-50% proportion. Um, 50% of this bacteria are what we call bad bacteria, and the other 50% are what we call good bacteria. This proportion maintains the health of the gut. The gut has several important functions. And one very important function that the gut does is that it helps to regulate and train our immune system. And every function of the gut is dependent on the 50-50% proportion of the good and the bad bacteria. When the gut is healthy, one of the functions it does is that it trains the immune system to be able to protect us from threats, from issues. When the gut is not healthy, instead of the immune system being our protector, going to war for us, the immune system becomes our enemy. It turns against us and begins to attack us. And that happens when the gut is not unhealthy, when the gut is unhealthy. Now, there is something we call gut imbalance. Gut imbalance is when the 50-50% proportion of the bacteria is distorted. Remember, I said that the good bacteria have to be let's do this. There's a 50-50% proportion. 50% of them are bad bacteria, and the other 50% are good bacteria. We say you have gut imbalance when the good bacteria increase in number and now outnumber the bad bacteria, I beg your pardon, increase in number and outnumber the good ones. What happens is the good bacteria can increase to, let's say, a proportion of 70% at the expense of the bad bacteria increase to 70% at the expense of the good bacteria that decrease to 30%. When this proportion is thrown out of whack, we say you have gut imbalance. And what causes it? Because we were so our gut, we're supposed to live in this equilibrium, the 50-50. So what causes the gut imbalance to go from perfection, to imbalance? And the answer is simple. I go back to this slide where I say we eat in today's DNA, we eat in ways that affect two of the body's key systems, and it has to do with food. You see, the food for every living organism, it doesn't matter if that living organism is a bacteria in your gut or that living organism is a lion in the jungle. Every living organism needs nutrients to survive. And the nutrients for the bacteria in the gut is fiber. Unfortunately, in modern society, our foods are so devoid of fiber. We're not consuming enough fiber. And because we're not consuming enough fiber, there is a shortage of food. Now, when there is a shortage of food, what happens is that it sets into motion survival of the fittest. And the survival of the fittest mode is who gets what, who is stronger to get what. And the bad bacteria, the stronger bacteria. So in the survival of the fittest fight, the bad bacteria win the battle and are able to hoard all the little food that is there and say, you know what? We the stronger ones, we've won the survival of the fittest fight. We have this little fiber. But in order to keep a monopoly on this little food, we don't got enough food for us, the bad guys and the good guys. Let's go ahead and increase our army so that we really keep a monopoly on this food. And what happens is now they now increase their army to 70% at the expense of what happened here. Sounds like they now increase their army to 70% at the expense of the good bacteria that decrease. And we call that gut imbalance. When I talk about fiber being the reason why there is gut imbalance, I want you to understand this. A man is supposed to consume at least 38 grams of fiber a day, okay? A woman should consume at least 25 grams of fiber a day. That's the dietary recommendation. But the NIH estimates that the average man and woman in the United States is consuming a shameful 10 to 12 grams. That's less than 50% of the required amount. Our foods are so processed. You see, our ancestors, studies say that our ancestors were consuming about 80 to 90 grams of fiber a day. And fiber is very important for gut balance. One thing also is that fiber is very important to keep insulin resistance in check. So we don't have those two things. And when you have gut imbalance, the the functions of the gut become compromised. And when the functions of the gut become compromised, what happens is that you now develop diseases that as a result of gut imbalance. On here, you will see several autoimmune diseases, Hashimoto. An autoimmune disease means that the immune system, which is supposed to be your protector, has turned against you and it's now harming you. So Hashimoto is an autoimmune disease coming from the gut. Lupus autoimmune, MS autoimmune, celiac autoimmune, several other illnesses here. And guys, ladies, gentlemen, this slide is not exhaustive of all the diseases that come as a result of gut imbalance. It's just a depiction of what we can put on this slide. And I want to highlight these two diseases at the bottom here, anxiety and depression, because I found that very surprising when I learned about this myself, that anxiety and depression are principally as a result of an unhealthy gut. I was stunned. And the biology makes sense when you understand. There is a hormone called serotonin. Serotonin is what we call the happy hormone, okay? The happy hormone, it maintains our mood and happiness. Now, did you know that 90% of that hormone is produced in the gut? 90%. That's a whopping number. The other 10% of that hormone is produced in the central nervous system. When I was in medical school, I always thought that all of serotonin, this hormone, was produced in the central nervous system, but 90% of it is produced in the gut. So if 90% is produced in the gut and the gut is unhealthy, it means the factory is not working. When the factory is not working, that 90% cannot be put out. And so the body is now reliant on 10%. And so you have anxiety and depression. Now, so that is the reasons why we're sick today. These two things, how our body makes energy and how the gut functions. They're the reasons why we are so sick. The good news is that there is now reputable science that says that in as much as these are the reasons why we are sick, if you could go back and restore the way the body makes energy and restore the balance of the gut. The diseases that came as a result of those two entities, can now be reversed. Because these two things, these two root causes, the way the body makes energy, insulin resistance, and the balance of the gut, what they do is they cause a deficiency of energy. It's that, the still biological energy. And when there's a deficiency of energy, then say critical systems that depend on energy in the body break down. And I like to depict it with this analogy for you to see how simple this is. If you have a car and the car ran out of gas, that car's gonna stop. It stops because it has run out of its energy source, its fuel source, okay? Not because of intrinsic failure of the engine. So if you were to go to a gas station and bought a gallon of gas and got back to your car on the road that has stopped and put gas in that car is gonna roar back to life again. You hear the beautiful sound of the engine again. Why is that? Because the problem was energy, fuel. You have restored his energy source. So it is with these diseases, ladies and gentlemen. These diseases which plague us today in modern day society, are the result of a deficiency of energy. If we can restore the deficiency of energy, address the two issues that cause the deficiency of energy, and restore the energy deficiency, those diseases become often are usually reversed. And it is so simple but so profound. And I want to now shift and introduce to you a solution that, as a physician, has become my very favorite tool in helping as many people to be able to do just that, to be able to reverse the root cause of their issue. And this solution is called the Feel Great system. And the Feel Great system, what it is it's what we call a nutraceutical product. Nutraceutical means that it is made 100% from plants. The ceutical then doesn't mean there is medication in it, but it just means that it has huge therapeutic benefits. It packs a punch. Even though it's food, it is more medicinal than it is food. That's what nutraceutical means. Now, what these two nutraceuticals do, Unimate and the Balance, what they're gonna do is they're gonna use it uses this is a science-backed approach, uses the science of intermittent fasting and fiber supplementation to reverse the energy problem, insulin resistance, and gut imbalance. So we're going to use the science of IF, intermittent fasting, plus fiber to be able to go back and correct these two things that cause issues. Now, let's talk about how that works. The very first product called Unimate is made from a plant that is native to South America. It has it has many advantages, many uses. But one of the uses that I want to highlight, and I'll talk about these other advantages, is that it helps us to be able to fast. Remember, we're going to use the science of intermittent fasting to try to correct these two things. Now, um, this product called Unimate is made from a plant native to South America called the yerba mate plant. And that plant is rich in a very special phytonutrient called chlorogenic acid. Chlorogenic acid is going to help you to intermittently fast because chlorogenic acid causes the body to produce a special hormone called glucagon-like peptide 1. Glucagon-like peptide 1 is the GLP-1s that you hear people talk about in Zepbound, Ozempic, Mounjaro, and pick your choice. So the body produces GLP-1s naturally when you consume the right phytonutrients, the right foods. So when you consume the Unimate, it's going to cause the body to produce GLP-1s to help you to fast. We recommend that everybody on this protocol adopt a discipline of fasting for 16 hours. You see, I said that we eat in ways that have harmed our body, and these were foreign to our ancestors. We're eating, if I were to be generous, I'll say we're eating 3 meals a day, but that would be an oversimplification and leaving out some facts because we don't eat 3 meals a day, really. We eat uh, three main meals, and we snack throughout the day. We eat like vultures in between meals, so graze like cattle on a Texas ranch. And when we do that, it causes the problem of insulin going to work over and over and over again and getting burned out. You see, our ancestors never ate 3 meals a day, let alone eating, snacking throughout meals. The best that we will put is that our ancestors ate a meal and a half a day, something like that. Now, so what we want to do is we encourage that to be able to reverse your energy problem, you begin a discipline of intermittent fasting. And the GLP-1 component of this, it causes the body to produce natural GLP-1s. I want you guys to understand that our bodies naturally produce that. The GLP-1s in the GLP-1 drugs are synthetic forms of GLP-1. So they'll have an unnatural interaction with your GLP-1 receptors in your body. This is different. It will cause your body to produce its own GLP-1. Why is that important? That is important because when your body produces GLP-1, it goes and shuts down the hunger center of your brain and helps you to be able to fast. We want you to fast for 16 hours because why? If insulin got burned out because insulin has processed calories, has worked 30 to 35% over time and gotten burned out. Gilmore, when you get burned out, the best way to recuperate from that burnout is to get rest. So intermittent fasting gives insulin the rest insulin needs to recuperate from its burnout. So that's why we advocate for using intermittent fasting with the science. So let's say you eat dinner at 7 p.m. and go to bed at 10 p.m. and wake up at 7 a.m. in the morning. After waking up at 7 a.m. in the morning, the last time you had dinner was 7 p. You've already been fasting for 12 hours from 7 p to 7 a. 8 of those hours were spent actually sleeping. So what we want to do is we want to help you extend your fast by 4 hours. And by that, we ask you to make breakfast extinct, to not eat breakfast and eat just lunch and dinner. So the Unamate, by drinking it, the it's going to help you extend your fast for 4 hours. And how do you do that? Both of these products, come in powder form. This is the Unamate. It comes in a sachet like this. So what I do, I wake up in the morning, I make a bottle of the Unamate, and it comes with this bottle when you order the product, and you have a graduation here for the Unamate. So all you do is you empty the powder. This has it comes with it's in the powder. All you do is you empty the powder into this, and I'm gonna demonstrate just with this. You empty the powder into this, and after emptying the powder into that, you shake it and it's ready to go. And what you do is you sip on this every 10 to 15 minutes throughout the morning. You do not want to gulp on it. Every 10 to 15 minutes, when you sip on it, there is a transient production of GLP-1 to help you not to feel hungry so that you can fast for 16 hours. When you're fasting for 16 hours now, you have rested your insulin, and your insulin can now recuperate from its burnout and become an effective employee. So that's one of the main benefits of the Unamate in helping you, but it has several other benefits. And the several other benefits I just want to highlight. It doesn't only have a GLP-1 property, but it helps promote satiety, helps support healthy cognition. People who have brain fog notice their brain fog go away, helps to maintain stamina, fat burning, lipolysis, helps to support healthy cholesterol. My cholesterol dropped by 64 points using that. Helps also promote a healthy gut, healthy digestion, an overall feeling of relaxation. So there are multiple benefits of that. But the main thing I wanted to concentrate on is how this, using intermittent fasting and its GLP-1 producing property will help you reverse one of the root causes of why we are sick. So that's that for the Unamate. The other product is a product called Balance. Balance is just simply fiber. Fiber is important in giving insulin a rest. We want to rest insulin to make it recuperate from the burnout, and fiber is very important in doing that. How does fiber do that? You see, fiber decreases your glucose spike, what we call your glycemic index. If I were to eat food with fiber, instead of my blood sugar going to a particular level, it will be lower. And why fiber does that, it slows the transit of food through the colon. When food goes through the digestive tract slowly, the release of glucose in the blood is slower. Vice versa, when food goes through the digestive tract fast, in the absence of fiber, the release of glucose is fast. And these are the implications on your insulin. If you and I went to an Italian restaurant to eat lasagna, and you ordered your plate of lasagna and you had it without fiber, your blood sugar will do this. And that blood sugar could be a blood sugar of 170. So for me, I know a thing or two about fiber. And I know that this balance product, it also comes in a sachet just like this. It's powder. And what you do, the way you take this balanced product, you take it 5 minutes before a meal. This bottle comes with that graduation. I fill the bottle to the balance level. And for the balance, which is fiber, when you dilute it in water, you want to gulp it all down. You do not want to sip on it slowly like you did the Unimate. But so I take the balanced product because I know that it's rich in fiber, and I consume the exact same plate of lasagna that you had, same quantity. My blood sugar will do that, and my blood sugar there may be a blood sugar of 80. And what are the implications of that? You and I had the same plate of lasagna, but your blood sugar went up to 170. Because your blood sugar went up to 170, your pancreas is going to have to produce or recruit a commensurate amount of insulin to go to work. So for this, your pancreas is going to call on 20 units of insulin. Come on, let's work. Now, for me, my pancreas, if because I produce only 80 units of insulin, it's going to bring in a smaller labor force of maybe 5 units of insulin to work. Now, if your insulin is burned out, do you want more of it to be working or less of it to be working? If less of it is working, it means more of it is resting. If more of it is resting, there's a good chance for it to recuperate from the burnout. If more of it is working, it means, you're exposing it to the same thing that caused it to become burnout. So that's what fiber does to help to rest insulin. We're using the science of intermittent fasting and fiber supplementation to reverse the energy problem of insulin resistance. So that's how the Unimate helps to reverse that, and fiber helps to reverse that. The last thing is that fiber is food for the microbiome, so it helps to reverse the gut imbalance. Remember, I said that the reason we develop gut imbalance is the shortage of food. Our foods are so processed. So just by beginning to incorporate fiber into your diet, you're now giving the bacteria enough food. There's now enough food for the bad guys and the good guys, and there's no need for infighting, no need for survival of the fetus. And as a result, that restores the gut imbalance. When these two issues are restored, these disease entities that came as a result of that begin to go poof, 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 disappear like Houdini disappeared an elephant, just like that. And it may sound like magic, but it's not magic, it is science. The problem was energy that caused those problems. You restore the energy, those problems disappear. And so I will end by making a very bold statement. If you or someone you know suffer from any chronic medical conditions, those chronic medical conditions came as a result of how the body makes energy and how the gut functions. And if you could restore that issue, um, restore that energy deficiency, you could reclaim your health again. And I say that the Feel Great system, is a very, very good tool to help you do just that. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Amory, to help us take it from here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Dieter. It was a great inspiration, and we get lots of comments all the time about how you make it so simple for people to understand what we're doing. So thank you again for doing that. We only have 20 minutes. We have another call right after this, but we did want to get some examples of some people who have been using the system that Dr. Dieter described tonight. I'm going to show you some pictures of what they are, and then we have a couple of speakers that are going to just talk a little bit about their experience so far and what they've seen. You know, proof that this has been working and been working efficiently. I wanted to give you one example of someone's blood work that came back and they said, no, we really use this. Their triglycerides were at 1,571, which is really high, is not safe. And they got their triglycerides down to 247 in a couple of months. And so we get messages like this all of the time. And we have Dr. Dieter here. This is a picture of him before he discovered intermittent fasting, then fasting for 5 years, and then 2.5 months on the Feel Great system. If you're new here, maybe you haven't seen this picture before, but just to give you an example, this is 35 days. If you get a feel for people are asking how fast will it work? It depends on everybody's metabolism, but this is I think 45-year-old male. And this is at 35 days for him on the system. And then another example is this woman here. This is Kimberly, and this is 60 days for her on the system. But then what's really fascinating, right, is then 6 months. So this is 60 days, and this is 6 months later. She has a new lease on life, right? She's off all of her meds. She's feeling better. She has a bunch of energy. She looks like this. I think she's a size 4, size 6 clothing and is able to maintain that easily. Corla, who only has access to truck driver food in a couple of months, made this change to her physical body and is getting off of medication as well. We see that anxiety meds. Angelina was, obviously her body changed and reshaped in a couple of months. But for her, what was so significant was losing the meds, losing the anxiety medications, which is very exciting to see that. And so I'm just gonna get you to, someone walking with a cane. On Sunday, I was with a gentleman who just started on this system, walking with a cane. I was telling him my friend, Dr. Marla, was using a cane, and 3.5 months later, using this system, she didn't need her cane anymore. She was able to get her balance and get off of all of her medications, normalize her blood work, and got rid of this long COVID system, psoriasis, getting relief from Claudia. And then you see this like Ozempic-like results where someone who's a 4X clothing, this obviously doesn't take months, this takes a year to lose this much weight, but he was able to keep it off and he's now sustained that for 8 months since he lost the weight. This is Cody. He was able to lose 47 pounds and no skin. So I just wanted to show this picture because when people lose weight with bariatric surgery, they end up with often the need to have their skin surgery to get rid of the excess skin. But you don't need to do that when you do this. This is a police officer in Dallas that went from being in a really tough place, almost losing his foot until 1 year later being healthy. And Keith is our speaker tonight, is sharing his story. This is him, a little over a year ago. Respectfully, it looks like he's a 65-year-old man, and he's not. He's in his early 50s. And now this is what he looks like. He looks younger than his age. And we see this a lot when we get the insulin out. We lower our blood sugar. We look 10, 15 years younger. We see this all the time. This is a foot ulcer that he had suffered from, opened wound, and how he's going to tell his story about this, but 15 after months of hyperbaric treatment, $180,000 worth of treatment, he still had to use a scooter to get around, could not walk on his foot, could not put weight on his foot. Then 3.5 months on the Feel Great system, was able to make a significant change. This is his bucket of meds. His life was managing his day, wasn't just managing this disease that is a blood sugar disease. You can see here he's taking notes throughout the day, daily, on what's going on with his blood sugar and blood pressure, all day long, using all of these things. And so now I want to show you Keith. Now I showed you his foot and what he was experiencing before. I'm going to add a spotlight to Keith and have you share. So this is Keith now. He has a changed life. I interviewed Keith last night, and Keith, I'd love for you to walk us through again what life was like before and how things are different now. Your full-time job before was managing this disease, and now it's like when you retire, right? It's like you got to retire from disease management, and now you have to like figure out what to do with yourself in retirement. And you've created literally an entirely new life for yourself in just a couple of months.
Exactly. Thank you, Emery. So yeah, I was type 2 diabetic for 25 years under managed care on the whole full list of medications, inject 6 injections a day, plus getting injections in my eyes because I was losing my eyesight. And it all came to a head back in 2018 when I finally got diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder that destroyed my nervous system. Left me unable to walk, left me with poor wound healing, my shins, my feet, horrible cellulitis. And in January of last year, that foot ulcer you saw a picture of went septic, and it actually took my life for just under a minute. And when I look back at it, on a day my daughter was supposed to be celebrating finding out she was getting a baby boy, she had to immediately run to the hospital because I didn't make it. Um, they brought me back and I made it that point forward. I was going to get healthy, do something. I didn't know what, I didn't know how. And I fell across this protocol on TikTok and started watching, and immediately the doubts came in it seemed too good to be true. And so once my grandson was born in June of last year, I ordered the protocol and started it literally on my birthday. And within the first day, everything changed. It outperformed anything I could have ever imagined. I My energy was through the roof. On day number 2, I was off 108 units of insulin a day.
Amazing, right? These injections, I think people take this lightly, right? You had injections in your eye, injections in your stomach 6 times a day.
Yeah,
And for someone I've never had to inject myself, but for someone who has to inject themselves like that, I would think that you would have to just be like, all right, here we go again. Here we go again.
yeah,
That would lead to a feeling of depression and a
yes.
feeling of like hopelessness, it's like you're self-torture almost. And you know that you have to self-torture in order to manage your care to go from that to no more eye injections, no more constantly making your next doctor visit for your next doctor visit.
And like you said, I didn't realize how depressed I was. I truly didn't. Every time I was asked, it was like, I'm all right, you
Okay.
know. But deep down inside, that once it started lifting, I realized just how bad it was. And within 2 months, I was down 60 pounds,
Wow.
8 inches on my waist. Depression and gone was gone. 14 of my 15 medication a day was gone. My A1C at that point had dropped from 7.5 to 6.
Mhm.
And then in the next 30 days, I was able to get off the final medication. Um, I had lost 75 pounds, lost 10 inches on my waist. And at that point, I had all my doctor's visits scheduled for that week before I hit the 90 days. And my doctors were just amazed. I mean, my cardiologist she just sat there and stared at me for a while. My eye
Mhm.
doctor said he hasn't seen my eyes look this good in over 4 years. My foot doctor is was just floored, and for those of you that don't know, when you die, you get a lot of doctors and a
Mhm.
lot of them. Every one of them was amazed at, and all I had to simply say was it's in the physician's desk reference. And they all just kind of perked up and went, "Oh,
Mhm.
you can do your own research. By all means, I
Mhm.
want you to." And so yeah, I it outperformed anything I could have ever imagined, to be honest with you. I've now been on it just over 6 months,
Yeah.
and I'm down over 90 pounds, 14 inches on my waist. I went from a 4X shirt to an extra large, soon to be a large,
Mhm.
and I went from a size 50 pants to a size 36.
Yeah.
I and I can move. I'm
Mhm.
so much more active. And coming from a state where I couldn't walk, that was huge.
Mhm.
If you'd have told me this 7 months ago, I'd be trucking up and down the street, walking and doing this, I'd have told you were crazy.
Yeah. And Keith, I was talking to a person that had reached out to me from seeing some of my content on Facebook yesterday, and she said that too. She's like, I can't walk. She's sick, just starting out. So I can't walk around the block. Like, can you imagine, right? She cannot walk around the block, not because her feet, because she will fall. She's out of breath. She's so sick that she cannot walk around the block, and she's not very old. And so this disease really is taking people's lives, and there's such a different way that we could live.
It
Dr.
it
Natasha,
takes over your life.
it, yeah, you live this disease, and then 6 months later, you made modifications, changed 90 pounds. That's my 15-year-old weighs 90 pounds. You lost my Sophie in weight, a completely new lifestyle and life not revolving around doctors. I did also want to, yeah, feel free to share more too, but Dr. Natasha is here. She's also a certified pediatrician, able to answer some questions that people might have about kids using this product. We only have 5 minutes left here to do that, but Dr. Natasha, thanks you so much for jumping on. Tell us a little bit about what you've seen with your patients, your clients that have started using this product, and some of the key changes that you've seen, and why it's so important for both our mental health and physical health.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anne-Marie, and thank you so much, Dr. Dieter, for this amazing call. So for me, working in pediatrics, I've noticed a rise in children and their mental health declining, especially since COVID. There's been a huge rise in anxiety, in depression, and ADHD diagnoses, and even autism spectrum. And I've noticed, just like Dr. Dieter said, it's very much related to your gut health. And so I've been, in practice, I'm not able to directly recommend the products, but I have been able to recommend increase in fiber and meditation and mindfulness. But mostly the gut health issue has been a huge factor. And so I've had patients with, or clients rather, with kids, and they've been able to put them on the product and the protocol. And even kids are getting some adult diseases. So type 2 diabetes and fatty liver and obesity is huge in kids. And there's a push for pediatricians to give them the lifelong medications for obesity. And so now that they're not aware that there's a natural way because parents are overwhelmed, they're not able to give their kids the fiber that they need all day long. Every day at school, they're getting all of the processed foods at school. So this is a very easy way. It lowers the barrier to entry for parents to use it, for kids to use it. And so it's not, the great thing about it is that it's still easy to implement, but also it's not habit forming. And so kids are able to use it without necessarily fasting, and adults are able to use it. So I've seen entire family uses it. Dr. Dieter's family uses it. Your family uses it. So
Yeah.
it's pretty incredible what this has done.
Yeah, I have four kids and married, so there's six of us that use this product on a daily basis, and we have seen
Mm,
significant changes. We can see the difference. Like if we go to the beach, our family all looks like, I want to say normal size. Our family all is thin and fit. And when you
right.
look around, that's a little bit unusual, but we've been able to maintain everybody's weight using this and just healthy lifestyle choices that this makes it really easy. So thank you, Dr. Natasha, for that. Any questions for either of our doctors that we have on here tonight? We just have a couple minutes tonight. If you have any additional comments, last time we had a lot of questions like, say you want to try this, where do you get it from? The person who invited you to this call has a discount code that they can share with you if you would like to try it. Maybe you're on it already and you come so that you can get re-energized and hear about the stories of the people that are using this consistently. Anyone who I have had on this product that he's used it consistently for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days is unrecognizable from where they started. People notice, people start asking you what you're doing because you look different, you feel different. Everything about your life is different. And the number one thing that I have noticed this week is people say, I didn't realize how depressed I was until I started using the Feel Great system. And then they use the system and they're like, oh my gosh, I have been depressed for years. This is what it feels like to be not depressed. I almost forgot what that was like. So if you know someone who is also sitting, Renee saying, yeah, hey, that was me. Like if you know someone that's just kind of quietly suffering, quietly sitting in a state of depression, and you're not sure what to do for them, this system is just a simple way for them to reclaim their mental health, their joy, and their happiness. Yeah. A lot of people are saying like, hey, that was me. That was me. That's so true. We don't even realize how that is. So Dr. Dieter, I don't see a lot of questions in here to moderate right now. So we have it's not clear when to take each and what type. So let's talk about that. How to take. Helen is asking, walk me through the day. They have balance and Unimate. When do you take one of each type? Do we have to take the two at once or what do we do? So let's walk through how to use it.
Okay, so very good question. The way to use the Unimate on this protocol, you're going to fast for 16 hours. So you're going to be reduced to 2 meals a day, lunch and dinner. So I wake up in the morning and I make my first bottle of the Unimate to stretch my fast from 12 hours when I've gotten up until 16 hours. So I make a bottle of the Unimate and I just start sipping on it. I sip on it every 10 to 15 minutes. And it takes me throughout the morning, helps me not to feel hungry and until I get to lunch. When I get to lunch now, I break my fast. After breaking my fast and I've had lunch, I make the second bottle of the Unimate. So I have 2 bottles of Unimate a day. I make the second bottle of the Unimate and I sip on it throughout for another 4 hours until maybe around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock or so, and I'm done. So 2 bottles of the Unimate. Now the balance, we recommend that you take the balance once before your heaviest meal. So because on this protocol, you're going to be reduced to 2 meals a day, either lunch and dinner. So if lunch is the meal that you consume the most calories, you want to mix the balanced product and take it 5 minutes before lunch. If dinner is the meal that you consume the heaviest amount of calories, you want to mix the balance 5 minutes before dinner and take it all at once. Again, it's powder. I just cannot demonstrate it because I have this in here. You dump the powder in here, you shake it, same process, and you just gulp it all down. That's really simply how you take that. Just by taking those in that way every day will do wonders in restoring those energy deficiencies in your system.
And let's say you sit down and you realize you forgot to take your balance before you started eating, you can still take it after a meal. It's 50% as effective, which is still better than not taking it all. So let's say you have,
Yeah.
in your example, you're eating a 80 gram of carb meal, which is really high, it's a lot of carbs. Your body would only absorb like 40, about half of that, 40 grams of that. If you take it afterwards, it's going to be 50% less effective, right? So instead of absorbing 40, it's going to absorb 20, but 20 of not being absorbed in your body is better than nothing. But the best time to take it is before you eat and just making it a habit. What I've suggested with people to do is I keep the balance packet. I have some stuffed in my purse. I have some stuffed in my pockets. I have it stuffed in my car. I just have it everywhere and I use it every time I eat. If I'm going to have a meal, I'm going to mix the fiber. So I buy an extra box myself whenever I do that, but I just put it everywhere so I don't forget. If I go to a restaurant, I just sit there, I either I order a glass of water with no ice, or I bring a bottle with me and just mix it and I drink it right before my food comes. It's really super simplest, like seriously, the simplest thing in the world.
Yeah, let me answer the last question. Can a 10-year-old take it? The answer is yes. You heard Dr. Natasha. She's a pediatrician. I'm a pediatrician too. I have 3 kids on it. My youngest kid is 2. She's about to turn 3 tomorrow. She's on it. My 5-year-old daughter's on it. My 7-year-old son is on it. So yes, kids can take it too. And I tell people this is just food, okay? It is products made 100% from food products, from plants. So no contraindication to. The only thing is we don't have kids fast. Kids don't fast while they are on it, but absolutely safe for kids.
Hmm. And it's so true. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on this evening. And we are here because we want people to have better health. We want them to reclaim their health and see that life does not have to be lived in a state of depression. It does not have to be lived waiting for your next doctor's visit, your next appointment, driving on Friday night, stopping by and getting your prescription at the pharmacy before your weekend starts. You don't have to live that. You don't have to live that way. There is another way that has a day filled with joy, with some simple lifestyle changes and some simple products that make those very, very easy to do and sustain. So thank you so much for being on tonight, Dr. Dieter. We will see you on next Sunday evening for the science call again. If you'd like to bring someone else to hear this message, or on Tuesday night, we also have another science call with people that are going to explain some there and some real life stories there too tomorrow night. All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you and good night.